Hello and welcome back to Wentworth Woodhouse Classic Car Show. As we start this video, I was walking down a row of classic cars and I came across this rather splendid looking Rover 75, which of course I had to take a further look at, and I got a bit of a surprise. I have to say that pictures don't do the car the justice it deserves, because it was in amazing condition and the engine bay was absolutely immaculate. I then moved to the driver's side and noticed the details displayed on the windscreen. This is where I got the surprise, because it told me the owner of the vehicle was a Mr Lomas. I was surprised because I only met Mr Lomas for the first time the previous Sunday at another classic car show at Ripon Racecourse. On display there he had a fantastic Triumph Acclaim, which I have to say was most impressive. And I had to take some footage of that fine vehicle, and you can see that in my Ripon Racecourse review. What took me by surprise was that I didn't expect to be bumping into him again today, and when we'd spoken previously, I wasn't aware he had any other show vehicles. So I caught up with Mr Lomas, and he went on to tell me about its history. But before I tell you any more, I'll let you have a look at the car, and I'll tell you a bit more about our discussion later.
Where we invite all you people who have got classic vehicles over 15 years old to come into the arena, and our expert judge for today, Chris McPhail, will have a wander around and look at the cars.
A bit in the dark at the moment. My brother always said it's better when it is shaded.
Yes, yes.
It's not good when it's too much sun on it. To me, not being into photography, it always looks nice to me when it's very shiny and the sun's out. But
Oh, yeah.
my brother always said, no, it's too much, it's too sunny.
Well, this is the car that belongs to a Mr Lomas who owns a Triumph Acclaim, which I caught up with last week at Ripon. So it's a Rover 75 1.8 Connoisseur, and it's finished in Wedgwood blue, and obviously it's got nice leather interior, and it's just a beautiful car. Well, it's a beautiful car, it really is. And that interior engine bay again, it's like your Acclaim.
Yeah. The only thing is, I can only work on this when it's not raining.
Yes.
That's the trouble. I can fiddle around with the Acclaim and my Vitesse. It's a tandem garage, so I've got one in front of the other.
Yes.
And the thing is, I can work on them when it's pouring down with rain, but I can't do anything.
It turns out Mr Lomas purchased the car new in 2001, and this was the first new car he'd ever owned. He went on to show me some pictures of previous cars he'd owned, and one in particular, the car owned prior to the 75, was a 1988 Montego, finished in Lipari blue and hurricane grey. He said he only sold that car because when leaded fuel stopped being sold, he was told it would cause him problems, as it wasn't built to run on unleaded fuel. And as a result, he sold it and bought the 75. When he went to see about ordering the car from the Rover main dealer, his brother went along with him, and it appears he took charge of the negotiations. As a result, he got the car he wanted and more. He told me that he wanted one in Wedgwood blue metallic and with the 1.8 engine, but he wasn't bothered about getting a Connoisseur because it would cost more than he wanted. As the negotiations progressed, his brother kept getting bits added as part of the deal, and when the negotiations were reaching an end and a price was agreed with the salesman, as he was getting ready to sign the deal, his brother then said, "And you can do a Connoisseur for that price." He then started to get concerned because he could see the price was just going up and up and up, with all the bits and pieces added. But the salesman said, "Yes, we can do a Connoisseur for that price," and the deal was done. He said when they went to pick the car up, they discovered that the salesman was no longer working there, and they were told that he'd been sent to Scotland. He often thought it was because they'd been given such a good deal. When he took the car to his workplace, he said people couldn't believe this car was his, and he also told me that he was worried about getting it damaged while at work. So he decided to buy a cheap car to save and protect the 75. This resulted in him buying a 1983 Triumph Acclaim, and although it was 18 years old, it had only covered 39,000 miles. He said it was a car that nobody seemed to want, or was even interested in, and so he purchased it for £550. The 75 that you see in the pictures is totally original in every way. Currently showing just 36,000 miles, it still wears all of its original factory paintwork. And if you look in the engine bay, look at the bolts for the shock absorbers. Look at the headlights and the reflectors. They're all perfect. And if we move along the lower bodywork, look at the screws holding the mud flaps on. Not a speck of dirt or rust to be seen. The crown alloy wheels are original and not refurbished. And just look at how good the sills and the wheel arch lips are. It just shows the level of care and attention this car has received over the years. It's been loved and it shows. The paintwork is flawless. Not a stone chip or a scratch to be found anywhere. Not even any scratching where people put their hands to open the door handles. And I don't think I've ever seen one as good as this. And it really is factory fresh. And you could be forgiven for thinking it had just driven off the production line. It's lived a good life in a good home, and until more recently, it's taken him and his family on the annual holiday to North Wales, and it was the vehicle of choice for the trip. Mr Lomas describes this car as his daily driver, but its condition certainly doesn't give that impression. And the irony of all this is that the roles have been reversed, because the everyday car he bought to protect the 75, the Triumph Acclaim, has ended up being the car that occupies the garage, and the 75 is now his daily driver and sits outside. Now, as I said earlier, he was showing me some of the pictures of previous cars he'd owned, and I noticed that there was a rather nice 1968-69 2-litre Triumph Vitesse in royal blue, which I understand he must have purchased in about 1975. But what I didn't expect to hear him say was that he still owned the car, and he's now owned that car for 48 years. This, I believe, was the car that he originally intended bringing to Wentworth today, but the plan changed because of the expected weather conditions. Now, he tells me that he has a tandem garage where both the Acclaim and the Vitesse live, but he also said that where he lives, it's one of the wettest places in the country, which means that he can work on the Acclaim and Vitesse in the garage, but preparing the 75 for a show is subject to the weather conditions. Now, I might add, it does sit under a cover, but he said he has nowhere to store a wet cover. So if he knows he's going to a show, he has to take the cover off a few days earlier while it's still dry. And he went on to add that it had done nothing but rain for the last few days, and so he hadn't had much time to prepare the car for display. But it certainly didn't look like a car that lives outdoors. I've met a few nice people this year while visiting the car shows, and I met a few miserable ones. But I have to say, Mr Lomas is one of the most genuine, honest, down-to-earth individuals I've ever had the pleasure to meet, and I could talk to him all day and listen to his stories. It's a real pleasure speaking to him, and he really is a nice gentleman, and I thank him for his time. If you want to view the video of Mr Lomas's Triumph Acclaim, I have now included a link in the description box, or you can search Triumph Acclaim CVR 950Y.